Hi, this is Abul Hussain coming to you direct from London, the United Kingdom, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast, where we talk about how you can start or scale your digital marketing agency, and we also bring on subject matter experts who share their wisdom in terms of how we can deliver better results for our clients. Now, if you are watching this episode outside of our Facebook group, make sure to find the link above or below this video, or go to smma-mastermind.com, especially if you are in the agency community. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest joining me all the way from from LA, the US. He's a CEO and author, co-founder of 𝗧𝗵𝗲. His name is Jason Ciment. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi, I suppose that's to say nice to meet me. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to meet you as well.
It's good to be here and talk agency stuff with you. I'm very excited.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, for the people who might not know you, how about a little bit of an introduction into how you got into the agency space?
So my journey is very atypical. Back in 1990, I was a CPA and accountant for a very large firm. They were the top firm in the country doing real estate-based accounting. Then I went to law school. I thought I was going to be an estate attorney and work on really cool tax shelters and things of those tax strategies. And when I passed the bar and got sworn in, I was standing in court and said, I don't want to do this right now. And I instead had just gotten married. So I launched a business online back in '96, selling products online. So I had an e-commerce venture. And then I raised money. A few years later, I bought out the company that had built my website. And then I was living in Los Angeles at that point. And then in around 2005, we had been leasing out e-commerce websites to companies, selling them, but we weren't making money doing any of the marketing for those clients. So we decided, one of my first employees in my e-commerce business, he joined me, and we opened up an agency to start selling marketing services. And so what ended up happening was we started with search engine rankings, because we both knew that very well. We had been doing organic rankings before Google was even a company. And then we started every 2 years adding another service to our agency. So we added pay-per-click management, we added building websites in WordPress, not just e-commerce, and then we added social media, and then finally we did reputation management. So we ended up starting an agency in LA. My partner got married, started having kids, and decided that he's going to do much better living in Scottsdale, Arizona, where his wife is from, and he'd have grandparents there to help with the kids. And so he moved there. We restaffed everybody in Arizona. This is already 6-7 years ago. And we have, between Arizona and our developers and someone in California, we have about 15 people working for us now. So we've definitely grown, not quickly, we're growing organically every year until we just hired another person now. So we're growing.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an awesome story. So your agency right now, are you working in a particular industry or a particular niche, or do you take on anyone and everyone?
So what ended up happening was about 3 years ago, I wrote this book, I Need More Clients. My shameless plug, right? I only plug it, I don't even sell it. It's on Amazon, but I wrote it mostly to give away for reputation, because if you write a book, you have to spend almost a full amount of time selling the book. I really wasn't worried about that. But creating the book helped me isolate one industry, which was professional service providers, like lawyers and doctors. And we distilled all the steps that we do into that book. So someone could read the book and actually follow the formula. They won't do it, but they could. And maybe they would, it's okay. And in any event, so we basically have 3 areas of the business. Service providers is number 1. The second one would be manufacturers and people selling online, like e-commerce. And then the third would be just ordinary businesses that are looking for leads, a lot of B2B type stuff, like technology companies, consultants, well, not consultants, that would be under service providers, but just normal businesses that want to get more leads and more sales. Ultimately, if you narrow it down, we do one thing. After we build a website, we get you traction. And that could be rankings, it could be better advertising, it could be creating content that we syndicate. Wherever your customer is online, our skill set is in figuring out where that customer is and then finding the cheapest way to get in front of that customer, the most efficient way.
So I'm guessing you're providing a full service from building a website to getting the traffic to optimizing for conversions and all of that.
All of that stuff, right?
Right, that's awesome. Now, I suppose you've got a fascinating story, Jason. What makes someone go from being a CPA to a lawyer to a marketer?
Oh, causing parents anxiety. That's number one. They worked so hard to get me through school, and then I threw it all away. So that's one perception. The other perception is I think that my training makes me a better problem solver than other people who do what I do. For example, I don't know how to use Photoshop. I'm not a programmer at a high level, but I learned in law school how you problem solve. I learned as an accountant how to create process. So between process and problem and solutions to problems, I bring a different mindset into a project. First of all, I don't have the ego that designers typically have. I'm not the one doing the actual design. Yes, I'm architecting out a solution. I'm talking with my creative team but they really have the gift to turn words in my head and words in the customer's heads into visuals. So I don't own that ego. And the truth is, most of the people everybody that works for me is a self-starter. And there was a study by Harvard of maybe 10 years ago that talked about who succeeds the most. Is it nature versus nurture type thing?
Right.
And they determined that grit is the determining factor. So whether you're rich or poor, privileged or not privileged, what determines your success is your grit, which is the desire to succeed, if you will, and the determination. So the people that work for us all have that grit. That's the one thing we look for, more than the pedigree or the education. We're looking for the drive, not the drive to win and conquer. It's the drive to succeed for the sake of success. So therefore, it makes us a little bit different, because every time we're talking to a client, we're looking at their situation sort of as if we're in their shoes and trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to win at this game? And it is a game, right? I mean, the measurement of your success or the dollars at a certain level, the traffic, conversions. But ultimately, if you go to work every day and you feel happy about showing up at work, it's not really work. It's fun.
True.
So if we can gamify the process of delivering results internally, it makes the outcome much better for clients. And it also makes the work culture better, I think.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, and it's a wonderful view that you're actually kind of taking on. That obviously, this is a game, and it's about winning. So, what are the metrics that you would have in a normal game, and translate that into your culture? So, I mean, you've got a team of 15 right now. How do you maintain that positive culture?
My partner is the one that does most of that, and he likes taking them out to comedy clubs, buy a lot of food, and empowerment is the key. So for example, we're building a new website for our own business, and instead of my partner and I kind of dominating that, we handed it off to a team within the employee group to own it. And we made changes and stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is, the evolution, even the new logo, came out of the team. So there's an element of pride that they can own it internally, which is different than the pride that they might have for designing a website for a client. So here, there's a good amount of fighting, if you will, to see whose idea wins, but it's good fighting for the sake of the company. My dad used to call it good and welfare in his fraternity. So I think that empowerment is a big part of what you call the company culture. The other part of it, which we didn't always have to this degree, is a sense of more than purpose, but shared purpose, if you will. And so, and we're really diversified in terms of our employee base, come from different places, but it seems that we're getting better and better at creating that synergy internally. It's a hard thing to do. Funny thing is, right now, I think we have the best team we ever had, even though we have the most people we ever had.
No, that's great. That's great. And this thing that's going on at the moment, and it'll be a bit remiss not to talk about this pandemic right now. How has that impacted your operations? Have you had to downsize, or is everybody working from home? Are you picking up more clients than ever? Because I know some agencies seem to be blossoming.
We're busy. We're not picking up more than ever, but we have a lot of traction. Things are going well. We're investing more. We have more people now than I think when the pandemic started. It was definitely a roller coaster, because right after the pandemic officially hit, we lost clients. So I will give a thumbs up to the American government for doing their PPP program, because it was definitely helpful to us. And I think they're going to release the names of all the borrowers pretty soon. So we'll be on there, which is fine. And that helped us to weather the storm. I mean, we're literally a success story in that respect. And part of the PPP was forcing us to redefine the processes internally. So we invested in a software called ClickUp that we use for project management, along with some timekeeping stuff. And so we were prepared to work remotely already. Mm-hmm. So what we lost in not being in person, we gained in improving our processes and our software for remote working. And again, because our team is self-starters, it makes it easier for people to work remotely. I mean, if you do the studies anyway, most of the studies say, at least for now, it's not boring yet, or it's not routine yet, people seem to like working remotely more than going into the office. So the challenge really is, how do you create the dialogue around the water cooler that at least businesses thought existed before? And they've kept changing not the game plans, the work plans, how people are situated, bullpens, private offices, scrum groups, different things like that. So I'm not even sure what's the right format when you're in the office. So, let alone now that everyone's out of the office. And what we do is we come in 2 days a week, and 3 days a week are remote. So I think there was a span of 6 to 8, maybe 8 weeks where nobody was in the office, and it was all remote. And I know it was painful, but the truth is there was no degradation of performance to clients.
And that's what matters, I suppose, at the end of the day. So in terms of your internal setup, how many people do you have like doing your kind of prospecting, account management, design development? Or
so we run it differently. We're again not typical. So we don't have account managers. We don't have salespeople other than me bringing in business for the most part. And I'm not prospecting as much as networking and meeting people, developing relationships, getting referrals, building what 𝗬𝗵𝗲 calls a referral culture. She's the queen of no cold calling, right? So all our business comes from referral at this point. But what we do instead is every division has 2 people. So we have 2 people on content, 2 people on SEO, 2 people on pay-per-click. We will have 2 people now on pay-per-click, 2 people on social. And then we have at the top, me and Michael, so we're 2 people. And then we have a couple of other people. Then we have developers. Again, those are teams of 2. So that's how it's been done. So we're toying with the idea of an account manager. The problem is the account manager never really knows how things are getting done at the detail level. So we think by doing it the way we do it, the phone calls have more people, but the clients are getting real answers when they're asking questions. They never have to hear, oh, let me go check and see what the people are doing. So I think it's a different way of doing things. I'm not sure which is better or worse.
No, this is interesting. You're taking this Noah's Ark approach of 2 by 2.
That's a good analogy.
So, well, no, I love it. I love it. Now let's talk about prospecting, because that is, kind of something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when they are starting out. You have spoken about kind of building this referral machine. Is this what you did from day one in building your agency? I mean, how did prospecting look like to you, or look like for you when you began your agency?
It was coincidental that I was able to join a group called Provisors back in 2009, which was a couple of years after we started the agency. But I didn't realize until after joining the organization that my internal workings were geared for networking. in the sense of I'm constantly giving things to people, whether it's time, advice, referrals, whatever it is, but I didn't have it as a formula for success. I just did it. It was a natural habit. But I remember learning that the more you do habits, the more they become your destiny. It's from a preacher named Creflo Dollar. He says, if you do actions enough, they become habits. If you do habits enough, they become destiny. So what happened was I learned how to turn my natural inclination of doing things for people. And I'm not a charity, walking charity. I don't mean it like that. It just means that relationships are predicated upon a give and take on a certain level. And religiously, even, there's a whole Jewish concept that the world was created as an act of charity, because the souls they're like, well, we got all this wonderful stuff. How do we pay you back? How do you pay God back? So God puts us on this world as broken souls to repair ourselves in order to earn the right to become a soul again. But the body, it's a very deep concept, which I'm still in 20 seconds. But the fact of the matter is, the reason these books like The Go-Giver and other books of that nature are so
I'm reading that right now, actually.
Right?
The Go-Giver, yeah.
They speak to your soul and they tell you what you're here to do. I mean, religiously, yeah, we say we're here to bring God's presence into the world and all of that. That's fine, but not everybody believes in God. But what everybody does believe in is the idea that you can't live as a community unless you're giving up something. You can't just be all about you. So therefore, in business, if you're constantly giving, then you earn not just, it's a circle thing, because you don't get it from the people you give it to. You get it from directions you never even anticipated. But people know that you're giving, so therefore it's like karma at the highest level. Hopefully, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time learning how to be a better giver, so that I can also open up channels of receiving. Right?
That's the best answer I've actually ever heard, to be honest, in terms of prospecting. Now, I mean, to kind of bring it to something more practical, how can someone be that giver? What do you do actions wise? Are you just showing up at breakfast meetings, or?
Okay, so I actually can make it pretty easy. So in this provisors world, and I also belong to something, a technology roundtable called ABL. And that one's not for networking, that's mentoring, it's very different. But in the provisors, you show up at a breakfast, well, now it's all on Zoom, but you show up at a meeting, there's between 30 and 50 people in a meeting, sometimes up to 90, and you get in advance all the people coming to the meeting. So the best thing to do is look up the people, check out their websites, and then determine, is there someone in your Rolodex you can introduce them to? Is there something on their website maybe that's broken, since I'm in the web business? Even though that's the lowest form of communication, because then it seems like I'm selling them something related to my business. So the best thing I can do is introduce them to a client, introduce them to a friend or a colleague, something that's directly related to their business and really has nothing to do with my business, unless I can magically create a synergy that puts 2 or 3 people together. And yes, somehow my agency works in, but ultimately the best thing to do is just be a value beyond the expectation. So even for clients, they might hire us to get them rankings, but they're all of a sudden going to find they're getting introductions to things that have nothing to do with what they paid me for. So
right, okay.
Being value added is the critical point.
Right, no, that's an awesome example there. I suppose the follow-up question to that is, when is it the right time to pitch then? When do you ask for the sale?
That's the damnest best question I've heard all day, right? Well, it depends. If you're talking to people that you're giving to, then they're not the people to be pitching to. Ultimately, what you want is you want the introduction, because if you get the introduction, then the right time to pitch is in the first phone call, because they made an introduction for the purpose of making business. But if you're doing prospecting to pitch the person you're prospecting to directly, it's math. To be honest, you can pitch immediately and say, I'm going to hit 10 people a day, and 9 are going to hate me because I pitched, but 1 may not. So I'm just going to focus on the 1 and not worry about the 9. and put the 9 into a nurturing column or an ignore column. And both methods work. It's just a question of if you think you're going to get more business from the 1 or more business from the 9 that you didn't pitch, because you didn't pitch any of them and you just nurtured. So you have to figure out what works best for you. The short answer I can give you is you have to determine what your first offer is, because the first offer should be the easiest one to say yes to.
Yeah.
For the recipient. And then once you get them into your funnel, then you try to nurture, upsell, make them feel guilty because they're not spending the money that their competitors are spending. Find some trigger that's going to bug them enough to say, wait, maybe you can help me. And so, but I'm not an expert on prospecting with pitching up front.
Sure.
Personally, it doesn't speak well to me. Though I am testing the waters now with someone to try that kind of marketing, just because I feel like, why shouldn't I go after that one person who will like me?
No,
right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So from your strategy of being the go-giver, right? I mean, how long did it take to see people actually, pay it forward? When did you start seeing some sort of results that, because you had given so much value out there, people were just in business your way?
The answer is a year.
Right.
Yeah. And I can tell you that one of my friends, his name is Mark Henkin, he's the king of networking on before and after the whole Zoom thing. And he advises people 1 to 2 years to start seeing this circle come around.
Right. Now, in that year, how did you prospect to kind of generate the revenue then? How did the money come in?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? It didn't in the beginning. It took us a year to build our business.
Right. Okay.
So I was able to wing it.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
A question for you, because we're very quickly running out of time, and these always run out of time. But this has been an amazing catch up for sure. For someone who is watching this, who wants to take the leap and get started with their agency, what's the best advice you can give them?
Find 5 books. Honestly, go read 5 books. You don't have to read mine. I need more clients. It's okay. But find 5 books that are highly recommended and take notes, because you're going to forget everything that's in those books. So one book I'd recommend, I liked it. It's called Ask by Ryan Levesque. It tells you how to find your market before you invest in it. I like that, even though I forgot everything that's in there and I folded over pages, but I still like the book. I keep it on my desk. I have to look at it again. Look at the people who are hardcore selling online and go dive deep into their websites and see what they're doing. And you don't have to recreate. You don't have to create the wheel. You can recreate the wheel. That's how I would suggest it.
Okay, awesome. No, that's great steps to get started. On that note, Jason Ciment, thank you very much for your time.